Hey everyone, this is Black 117 here, and today I'll be going over something that I haven't really gone over in a while, and it's going to be a Crown Tundra discussion. And in particular, I'm going to be going over the four like Tapu Pokemon, and Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Fini, and Bulu, as essentially all four of these have been confirmed. Like I think for like at least like a while now, ever since like the initial February datamine leak. These Pokemon as well as a bunch of other legendaries will be returning in the Crown Tundra. Um, so obviously like all these four Pokemon have had a significant impact in like Gen 7 initially. Probably more so than any other trio legendary or set of legendaries I've seen in any competitive minigame. We've had like certain trios like the the legendary birds, the legendary beast, legendary golems, with the Reggie trio, the lake guardians. Well, I think in Unova you had the quartet, the fighting quartet, and that's probably the only other quartet legendary trio, or not trio, but like quartet that we had, like with the swords of justice, Drakion, Drakion, Vizrazian, and Valiant with Keldeo. You also have the forces of nature and whatnot, but alright, I'm not gonna like, keep listing these down. So, but what made all these four Pokemon unique is the fact that they all have access to their terrains, respective terrains, and they've gained like some of them, or three of them, got for the power boost, with the exception of Fini. But we'll get into some interesting facts about Fini. So likewise, these Pokemon weren't available initially with Pokemon Sword, the initial versions of Pokemon Sword and Shield, likely due to the fact that they would probably dominate the respective VGC format. So obviously, the Game Freak wanted to like wait on these Pokemon to be revealed, or to be like released at a later point, especially with the Crown Tundra release. So, and now with only like a couple weeks away, we're gonna see how these Pokemon will react, or not react, but will influence like the respective like singles and doubles metagame. Now we have seen these Pokemon used a lot in the draft league format, especially in national decks. Uh, and of course, like national decks is technically an unofficial format, but it is used in like Showdown, and it is very popular. So ever since what happened with Dexit and all that. So, alright, so let's just go over each Pokemon. So, and one thing I will go over are some of the DLC like moves that these guys got in both the initial, with the initial like gains with all the level up and TR moves they got, as well as I think only like TR moves they got, as well as like the Isle of Armor, move twitters, which as you can see, some of them are very significant. So now Koko, let's go over Koko. Tapu Koko has been probably the most defining electric type, and ever since well Gen 7, probably the best electric type in the of the, of the tier. So in like singles and doubles, I mean, like this thing was often used as a special attacker, despite its like low special attack stat. And one thing that Koko lacked was a physical attack, was a physical like fairy coverage, and even some unique like coverage options. But even then, like it's still dominated with like a move set of Thunderbolt, Dazzling Beam, Volt Switch, and like let's say it has even if you turn to pivot around like ground types. Of course, all Tapus have access to Nature's Madness, so if you want to chip something down. So in Sword and Shield, Koko got or I'm getting my head on myself. So a physical set's very possible, but it's very limited. Like Wild Charge, Ray Bird, U-turn, and I guess you could say like let me look at this, like Like, I guess you could say you could add like a U-turn Volt Switch, but with the addition of Sword and Shield, two things happened. One, it actually got a larger physical move pool, since it won't show it on Showdown, but it actually got Play Rough and Close Combat, which are massive inclusions for Koko. It allows it to hit like, you know, something, let's say, that it wouldn't be able to counter, like let's say Excadrill. And also like Play Rough is just massive because now you could have access to a stronger stab option. As you know, this thing has 115 attack, so you could see like possible physical sets being used more often. So, and honestly, let's see, we'll just go over like some of the moves that Koko got. Rest. Also, although Tapus got rest, which is kind of funny if you ask me, but Assurance, Eerie Impulse, Endure, Close Combat, Store Powered, Play Rough. Obviously, the two that stuck out, or that sticks out, are like Close Combat and Play Rough. So, and you could see, as you see, I'll go over like some of the sets you'll see. One major change, or I guess two major changes that we have to look out for when building with Tapu Koko, I think especially in like singles, is that the move Defog now actually removes the terrain. So let me see if I'll change this to Gen 8. It just changes to Nat Dex, as you'll see. Like, it actually changes or removes the terrain of the Pokemon, so I'm not so sure if Tapu Koko is going to be running Defog anymore. But it can do it in case like, you know, you don't need the electric coverage. But so that's something that you gotta note, since it will lose out electric terrain boost. And speaking of electric terrain boost, all the Tapus, or you know, terrains in electric terrain, psychic terrain, and grassy terrain, they all got nerfed from 1.5 to 1.3 in this Gen 8. So they're not going to be as strong as they were in like Gen 7. However, certain moves that they got introduced are going to make up for it. So, which we'll talk about right now. So, Rising Voltage is just insane if you ask me. That is like an insane option that Tapu Koko got in the Out of Armor Boot Twitters. It also has Misty Explosion, which you could just use that as like a suicide lead. But like, or just, you know, if you're interested in using like a Choice Bandit set or Choice Spec set, you just or just maybe like an offensive lead. So, but with Rising Voltage, like, this move is insane. And I'll just like put up an example. Pincurchin. Pincurchin hits stupid hard with Rising Voltage. And what it does is that it basically doubles in power if the target is grounded. So, and in electric terrain, so on top of the boost, you get like a 1.3 boost, and then you have times 0.3, and then stab, and whatever boost you have with, like, you know, any special attack, or it just makes Tapu Koko exceptionally stronger. One interesting thing about like Koko is that it is exceptionally fast. So, and the fact that it has access to all this coverage options are gonna make it, like, you know, extremely versatile, and just very difficult to figure out what set is gonna be running. So that's something I'll just that's the main draw with Koko. Lele, this thing is gonna be very, very good, especially with in the prior, like, you know, formats. It had access to like powerful Psychic Search, boosted Psychics and Psyshocks, but now Game Freak's gifted like Lele with a better option, and that is in the form of Expanding Force. Now, those of you who don't know what Expanding Force does, I personally think it's probably the best new move in the game, in my opinion, since essentially, especially in doubles, because what Expanding Force does is that it just hits both opponents on if a user has psychic terrain like up, it just gets a 1.5 boost, and you hit both targets. So basically, you have like a. I have this in DD just to show the case that, like the description. So with Lele, you have a 130 special attack, and you're just gonna be able to just spam this move constantly. Even for like singles, it is ridiculously like this thing hits ridiculously hard. Like I've seen like some sort of calculations like a choice specs Lele's like expanding force just and possibly like 3-hit KO of Blissey, and even like has a good chance to shot it if it after rocks, assuming like the Blissey doesn't have like boots or leftovers or something like that. But you see what I mean, like. But anything else, that Pokemon, those Pokemon are just gonna get obliterated. So that's all I have for like Lele. But this thing is just an absurd powerhouse of a Pokemon. And I wouldn't be surprised if this gets banned in like Smogon or even even in like doubles. This is definitely gonna be the most centralizing Pokemon like in like that format. So especially with Dynamax allowed, it wouldn't surprise me to see this thing like paired up with Choice Specs, Choice Scarf, and whatnot. So yeah, I think I'll skip over Fini, and I'll just a bit. So, and I'll just go over Bulu because I think this is gonna be the third best Tapu in my opinion. Now Bulu was originally kind of like Fini. I guess you can add it. It's usually one of these two, but like in particular, Bulu has always been like kind of the laughing stock of the trio or the quartet, since it never had a strong coverage options, and it had good support options. Don't get me wrong, like Leech Seed, Roar, Taunt. You have good solid like grass moves like Horn Leech, Wood Hammer, and with Grassy Surge and like boosted SDs and like bulk ups. It makes those attacks, those grass type moves hit very hard. It does have access to Rock Slide and Sewer Power, so at least it hits most things for good chip. But as you probably saw with the Isle of Armor and the initial like Sword and Shield TRs, this thing gets access to a crap load of moves, in particular Close Combat, Play Rough, Darkest Lariat, and higher horsepower. So let me just highlight some of those, and we'll get to save the best one for last though. So Close Combat is a strong fighting move as is, so that's pretty good. On top of like, or at least you don't have to lower your own attack strength. So then you have Darkest Lariat, which let's say on a bulk up set, that's pretty good because like you could just like, let's say if someone's like bulking up versus you or cursing up, you're gonna beat them 1v1. So that's pretty good. And then you have access to Play Rough, which on a Pokemon with 130 special attack, or not special attack, but like physical attack, that's amazing. And this makes it basically lets Bulu counter like a bunch of dragons now, or even check them at worst. So, and the last move, and it is probably one of the second most important moves in the game it got, is high horsepower. Now, why I mention high horsepower? Because one of the effects of Grassy Surge is that it weakens like ground type attacks, and Bulu has access to like now has access to a way to like hit something like Heatran, like for good chip, or even Oko it. So that's pretty good if you ask me. And like the best part about this is that it doesn't get half. The strength of like high horsepower doesn't get like halved in damage like something like bulldoze or like earthquake. So it's still pretty good. Its base attack and accuracy is 95, so you might miss one on a blue moon, but like at least you have at least a usable ground move to hit like those fire types, fire, poison, like steals. But you know what's hilarious is that this is even the best move that Bulu got, second best for sure. But in the Isle of Armor DLC, it's gonna get Grassy Glide. And this move is like literally a godsend if you ask me. Because this move alone essentially makes Bulu a priority user. Now, we already seen Pokemon like Rillaboom abuse this very much in singles and doubles, and it's literally become like one of the best Pokemon in the both in the OU and the VGC metagames when it was allowed. It's even funnier because like in VGC they actually banned like Rillaboom in usage. Well, I know like they did like that. They banned like Rillaboom in like Series 6 just because it was like the top 6. It was like no, it was like around among the top 10 like most used Pokemon, and it was in those rankings in particular it was like top 1 or 2 respectively. So, but what made Rillaboom so good is that it basically lets basically lets it beat its counters, or just, you know, it's essentially like a stronger like E speed. It's just like by one like stat. Like I think it's like by 1 point if you factor in like, you know, grassy terrain. And given how powerful Grassy Glide is as is, it's incredibly powerful. And what's even more dumb is that even if like let's say you switch into like Lele or something like that, you're still gonna chunk that Pokemon. Even if they're just switching into terrain. So let me just talk about like Bulu here. So you could see something like Grassy Glide, Play Rough, High Horsepower, something like this, and then you just add Sword Stance, and this thing could just I'll prioritize a crap load of Pokemon if you ask me. Like Pokemon that you wouldn't think like it would have a chance against. Like say like okay, this is just an example. Say like you were up against a Garchomp and it has Poison Jab. Now with let's say Life Orb, SD boosted like Grassy Glide, I don't know exactly the damage calc on that, but like you will be able to like do a massive chunk to Garchomp, if not Oko it, if it's like weakened. And then that's the scary part about Bulu, because this thing could actually just outright sweep a ton of teams, and you could just out prioritize. Like let's say it's even Scarf Landorus isn't like safe against this thing. So now Bulu has a third like grass type option, and probably they're gonna be the main grass type option, since this thing's just gonna make it like really powerful and just take it over the edge. It will be definitely competing with Koko and Lele for sure. And the last of the four Tapus I'll go over before I go over the movesets is Fini. Fini has usually been seen as like a support set, like, you know, a supporter or like a CM user. So let's say like, you know, Calm Mind, Defog, Haunt, Haze, and stuff like that. You might see like Moonblast and like Scald. I don't know, obviously you're not going to use Haze with the CM set, but like sometimes you might see something like this in like singles and for like singles formats, since it is a good defogger. And in VGC, usually we see this thing as a CM or a spec speaker. Alright, so I got interrupted there for a bit, so I'll just get right back into it. So with Fini is of course the more defensive of the four. You can make an argument for Bulu, but Fini has like more better defenses in general. So, and one thing that Fini has like kind of been I don't know if this is like sort of a buff or a nerf or a buff, but it's one thing that it's kind of annoyed, finds itself very like annoyed, is that like Misty Surge is essentially like arguably the weakest of the four like terrains. Like on an offensive Fini set, like, you know, in VGC, it's usually used. Well, we haven't seen telepathy like Fini used at all in those set formats, since Misty Surge is arguably better. But like in that sense, like it basically allows like one thing it allows is that it actually prevents like a whole bunch of like no status options on you. So you could just prevent something like a defensive Pokemon like Snorlax or from getting toxic, and it also like helps against like opposing dragon type hits. So since Misty Terrain does have like the effect of reducing dragon type moves against grounded Pokemon by half. So with the new like Isle of Armor and I guess Crown Tundra moves, Fini actually got some interesting options. First up, I guess we'll go over Isle of Armor. Actually gets Flip Turn, which is kind of interesting because it gives it like gives Fini like a very interesting like pivot option to switch out around in between. So with Flip Turn, Fini is basically like sort of like a pivot option. Like let's say like Starmie or like Vaporeon or like even something like Dragology. Like I'm just like listing out examples of Flip Turn Pokemon, and I think Fini is probably gonna benefit like somewhat with this move. It basically allows it to be like part of that full turn momentum core. So, and I will have to list this out, but like Misty Explosion is actually interesting on a Specs Fini set. I wouldn't, and I definitely see this being a possibility in like doubles, since Misty Explosion is basically 150 like base power. Since it's under Misty Terrain, it's actually stronger, and you can use this as like a sort of like a suicide lead to somewhat like just OHKO both Pokemon, or especially in the doubles, or just do a lot of damage that way. Like your partner Pokemon can either, well, your partner Pokemon could just protect, and Fini could just like just go boom and just do a good chunk of damage to the opposing side. So let's see, also all the Tapus have Terrain Pulse, and to be honest, like they're not that, it's not as useful if you ask me. Like I guess Koko and Lele got like Rising Voltage and Expanding Force respectively, so they're not gonna. It's actually weaker, so in a weird way. It does give it like it does give like Bulu something, I guess, but and Misty Terrain Misty Terrain Terrain Pulse is basically like 5 points stronger than Moonblast, and Moonblast is arguably better since it is not only 95, but it also has that 30% chance of of the like special attack drop. So Fini also had access to some new moves with Rest and Drain Kiss. Now you might think, Rest? Why am I highlighting Rest? Now Rest, like, obviously is not gonna work with Misty Surge since you're gonna get blocked in a way. But now that Fini has access to it's gonna have access to potentially its hidden ability and telepathy. Now this isn't necessarily a nerf, but this is actually an interesting option because now Fini can actually run moves like Toxic, and it could actually Skull Burn like stuff freely around, like that aren't like levitating. So, and that could be pretty massive. And of course, telepathy isn't is a doubles exclusive. It's a more doubles oriented ability, which we'll get into its use in a bit. But like, this basically allows Fini to like function as a rest talk set, and it actually alleviates its recovery option. So we could even see this thing like with Taunt, CM, Rest, Moonblast. So as I will highlight in the sets below. So anyways, I'm gonna go over all the sets I have, and these are mostly like singles and doubles sets for each of the Tapus. So for Koko, I have like a choice band set, and it's pretty obvious, like abuse, play rough, close combat, wild charge, and U-turn. You could change this to Life Orb if you guys like. And I think it will just be just an interest. It will be like an interesting set if you ask me. It's not like this is exclusive for choice band. I think this could get certainly used in both like BGC and doubles in particular. You could add like Brave Bird if you want to get like max airstreams, like speed raises, and you get like max attack, plus attack like with close combat. So that'll be interesting. For the special set, You have Rising Voltage, Volt Switch, Dazzling Gleam, and Grass Knot. Unfortunately, Koko does lose access to Hidden Power Ice, so it won't be able to hit Landorus for good chip. But it still has access to Dazzling Gleam and Grass Knot, so to hit like opposing ground types. And Rising Voltage on Choice Specs Koko is like insane if you ask me. Like, let me see if I can go get it. Let me see if I could like showcase an example here. Alright, let me see. Unless this thing like lets me load. Alright, so let's just showcase this example. So, which I should have done in the first place. So, not Magnet Rise. Rising Voltage. Koko. Let's get something like Mew because it's very bulky. Rising Voltage on a Choice Specs Koko has a solid 31.3 chance to Oko Mew. Obviously that's Oko's after rocks, which is insane, or if you just decide to put Modest Nature, you have like a good chance to do so. So I do see like Koko will probably run Timid, especially in doubles. So I'll speed Cinderace. So yeah, and I'll get Cinderace right now. This just nukes it. Like, Rising Voltage just nukes Cinderace out of the picture. Like, let's remove like the choice. Like, this just, you see, like this just is a clean Oko. That's hilarious. And let's say if you even put like a Magnet or something like that, it's still doing an absurd amount of damage. Now, let me see this example. Like, now Zapdos, like something like a Zapdos, which will still be able to take this hit. So you like certain flying type Pokemon can in theory semi-wild Koko. So we could see the possibility of like a Specs Koko running like, let's say, Thunderbolt and Rising Voltage together. Since let's say like you want to have that extra oomph or extra power just to be able to two-shot these guys. So yeah, even if like that's assuming if like a Zapdos or like something like Zapdos would be like especially defensive. So, but yeah, like just to illustrate the point, I just wanted to showcase those calcs just to illustrate the point of how powerful like Rising Voltage Koko is. So, and then you have this CM Koko, and Rising Voltage getting boosted by CM is kind of, with Life Orb on top of it, it's just kind of terrifying if you ask me. So for VGC, I think we will see about the same. Rising Voltage, Dazzling Gleam, Volt Switch. You might see Grass Knot, Taunt, just to block. Like, Koko is actually one of the faster like taunt users, if not one of the fastest taunt users. So you use Taunt to block Trick Room and whatnot. So, and yeah, this will probably be the standard Koko set for VGC. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like the set. Last one I'll go over, and this is kind of an interesting one, and probably my favorite Koko set is AV. And we might see the return of like AV Koko, especially like on physical, even like a physical set. So, like the goal will probably be to chip everything down with Nature's Madness, Volt Switch around, get U-turn around for good, like to pivot around with your like Pokemon, and just be able to pick off like certain your opponent's teams with Rising Voltage, Dazzling Gleam, and now with access to play rough in close combat, you can use those moves as well. So Koko doesn't necessarily need its like protect or like status options. So I could see like AV Koko returning. So next we'll go on to Lele. I mean, Specs and like Scarf Lele are just like ambiguous of each other, so I wouldn't be surprised if either or are very popular. I do believe like Specs will be used more in like singles, whereas Scarf will be the main set for Lele in like in VGC, since Lele is gonna have to compete heavily with Dragapult. And let me just get Dragapult right here. So just put some damage calcs just to illustrate the point how how dumb this move is. Like expanding force, like Choice Specs expanding force, just Oko's Dragapult. Like, and this is like, oh by the way, I didn't put this as base 50, but still, that's insane. This is insane if you ask me. And let's say even if you have like a Scarf, like you already Oko it with Min Blast, so you outspeed Dragapult, but expanding force is just insane. Like you're doing 79 to 92% to Dragapult, and that's, by the way, this is doubles. The singles, it would just, this is like a straight out Oko. So yeah, that's all I have to say about this. Alternatively, you could run this Stall Breaker Lele set, which is like which is kind of interesting. I could see this being used like I might see this like used like in even like in VGC. Like you just, the goal is just to prevent Trick Room, Nature's Madness, and just spam the shit out of like expanding force. Of course, I have Protect here just to get leftovers recovery. You could also add like a berry, like a citrus berry or like a figgy berry and whatnot. So then you have the CM, which, let's be honest, like we'll just move on because this set's already insane as is. And of course, last set's like, this is probably the common beat like Lele set in like doubles. So I expect this to be very, or the second common set. So I do think Scarf Lele is going to be the most common one, and then Life Orb. Especially with access to Dynamax, it's going to be insane. So, since you could just reset your Psychic Terrain if you want to, so. And it actually has access to like electric terrain and whatnot, so with the Koko, or if you just want to set up like, you know, Thunderbolt. So next I'll go over Bulu. And I have a lot of sets for Bulu because, like, honestly, this guy has the most potential. It's obviously going to be the most improved Tapu. But yeah, like, Rising, like, you know, Choice Band Bulu is insane. Let me just put up the damage calc again. Bulu, let me just get SD. And let's just get, like, Life Orb here. And I'll just change the set, like, Horn Leech to Grassy Glide. You're not even weakening, like, Horn Leech is usually the main move of choice for Bulu, other than like maybe Woodhammer. But that 5% drop just to have priority is insane. Let's say you want to have like Grassy Glide, High Horsepower, Play Rough, not Foul Play. So this is like Bulu. I guess we'll just have it like this. So alright, so let's see how much this does to Dragapult. Okay, this is insane. Like, yeah, this is Gen 8. Life Orb? Like Grassy Glide does 42 to 50 on a Dragapult. That's for VGC. And I think it's a little bit more damage. Like, that's insane. And then you power it up with like an SD. Yeah. And also, by the way, Play Rough just Oko's Dragapult, so you could always just go for that option. And then let's say something like an Arcanine tries to switch in, like, oh yeah, I have high horsepower, you're dead. So that's insane. High horsepower is just insane. And then let's take something like a Garchomp as an example. Like, look at this, like, +2 Life Orb boosted top Bulu, Oko's Garchomp. And this is priority. That's insane. That's fucking insane if you ask me. and then just to like illustrate the point for doubles, since I'm gonna change it for like I'm changing it back to level 50. It still does like a crap ton of damage if you ask me. Then let's say something like Cinderace. Like, this is like just absurd. And Cinderace often changes its typing to be like fighting, flying. Of course, you have to be careful if it changes to, like, you know, steel, poison, fire. Like, it will probably have a resist, so I'm just gonna keep it as a fire type. But just even as such, like, +2 can have a chance to Oko Cinderace, and very likely that mon's gonna be weakened somehow. So yeah, that's just absurd. Just shows you how powerful Bulu is. and choice band between like, obviously I have access. I was just illustrating SD like Bulu and choice band. Honestly, Bulu is gonna reminds me a lot of Scizor, like because like I do have this like leftovers like grassy glide set. I think you could put this. You could have like high horsepower or whatever coverage option you need. Like let's say play rough, high horsepower, SD, and Sinitas, and you have access to grassy surge already. So you could just maybe run instead of like leftovers, you could run life orb, get that extra power boost, and grassy surge is gonna give you that extra recovery. So that's gonna be pretty nice. Spellbreaker Bulu is also like exceptionally good if you think about it. Since you have access to SD, Taunt, Nature's Madness, so you might as well just spam like Grassy Glide. This is sort of this set sort of helps you weaken like defensive sets or defensive walls like let's say Toxapex or Chansey or Mandibuzz, and you just like over time you could just like go for like once they're weakened you could just go for like a sweep, and that's just insane if you ask me. So for VGC, like I could see this being the main set, and then maybe one of those two like have like Sword Stance, and then like just go to town with it. So and of course high horsepower does increase the power of or does give it like a def like boost if you're running like if you're running let's say like if you're going for the Dynamax on the Bulu. So but honestly I just use this as a priority option for like Rillaboom. So you do have access to Play Rough as well as like Rock Slide, so that gives you something over like to hit like rock or to hit like fire types like Charizard on the Switch. So and of course I have to mention this set. Like you could see I guess this is sort of like it's sort of compressed, but you can go with bulk up Grassy Glide or whatever coverage option you want, or even you just go for Subseed. Like I said, I think there's a lot of potential for Bulu. So and last we'll go over Fini. Now this is the most common set on like the Showdown like decks, and this is probably gonna be like I think the only difference is now instead of Defog, it might have like Flip Turn. I could still see Misty Surge used on like Fini sets that don't have like Defog, or that don't have let's say not Defog, but they don't have like yeah, because like essentially speaking, you're gonna be able to block Toxics and like burns and like paralysis for your Pokemon. So that would be helpful temporarily. So Stallbreaker set is also another option. I could see Taunt Stallbreaker, then Flip Turn and Scald. Now then we get to the interesting sets. Like of course with Telepathy you now have access to rest. You can go to sleep and like get some recovery, or you could just go for Sleep Talk. You could use something like this just to be like a Crocoon's like set. So that's the CM Fini for you. So, for BGC, I could see like Calm Mind, Muddy Water, Moonblast, and Protect. This is probably the standard Fini set for like all of VGC 17, a bit of 18 and whatnot. So I think the difference here is that you technically don't need Misty Surge anymore, because with Telepathy, you can actually just spam EQ or Discharge or whatever, spread damage you have. Or like, Discharge from Koko. And Fini doesn't really benefit a lot from the terrains. Like, it doesn't necessarily benefit from like, setting up a terrain for itself. So I could see Fini like running Telepathy more often than not than like Misty Surge. Although like the only other reason you would have Misty Surge is to, disrupt the the boost from Koko and Lele. I could see that being the only main reason. But for like let's say if you want to use like a Fini of your own, and you don't want to disrupt your own like terrains boost, you might see Telepathy Fini used significantly. So that way you have access to all those electric terrain and psychic terrain and grassy terrain boost for your respective other like secondary Tapu. And then you have like Specs Fini. This one I think will probably see Misty Surge. If this has Misty Surge, it might scream like this thing having like Misty Explosion, since that thing it will get boosted by the fairy terrain. So, well, very likely you could just use telepathy, and again you could just have Garchomp in with Fini, and you could just like spam EQ. So it's basically like having like another like a flying type Pokemon, or even like you could just have like Koko again, like discharge, bam, and that's like already insane if you ask me. So, and then the last one just to support Fini said so. With Teal Pulse, Taunt again, it's semi stall breaker, but you get the idea. So, anyways, that's all I have for for like all these Pokemon. I do think that these guys are gonna make a significant like. I have no idea what I added these guys in, like Indeedee and Rillaboom. Indeedee and Rillaboom are probably gonna get their. I guess you will see like Rillaboom and Bulu compete, but honestly, these four are definitely gonna have the most significant like um impact in the format and like the upcoming Crown Tundra. So I would I'll be very mindful and careful and when team building around with and against these Pokemon. So yeah, that's all I got. So anyways, if I'll probably like do like an overview of all the Crown Tundra Pokemon in like another upcoming video, and I'll just like have my thoughts on them each, like just a brief like overview if you ask me. So anyways, I'll see ya.